Hi everyone, Heavy Fan Metal here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Iron Maiden record, Book of Souls. Infamous heavy metal band Iron Maiden, and one of the bands that I go to first to recommend whenever anybody comes up to me and says, "Hey man, how do I get into heavy metal?" Maiden dropped so many stellar records in the 80s, you just really cannot go wrong with their early output. But as the band continued into the 90s and into the aughts, they delivered their trademark sound with varying degrees of success. And it was in 2010 the last time that we heard from Maiden in a studio album capacity with the record Final Frontier. And there were some decent tunes on this record. The title track was certainly great, but vocally, I think Bruce definitely left a lot to be desired, plus the production on this record was pretty weak overall as well, with the drums and the guitars coming together in just a really flat, lifeless, one-dimensional way. Not really the throttling and very thrilling ride that you sort of expect from an Iron Maiden record. I mean, it wasn't the worst record since their heyday, but certainly not the way that you want to step into the new decade, which Iron Maiden has been silent for the bulk of so far. I mean, we're halfway through the decade, and it's only now that we're getting a new full-length album. And this new record over here, Book of Souls, is billed to be a doozy. The band's longest studio album to date, standing at 90 minutes. Another 90-minute album. There have been many 90-minute records coming out this year, but, you know, it's Iron Maiden. You got to listen to it. And it's not like the tracks on this record add up to 90 minutes because they're being spread out amongst 15 or 20 or so tracks or something like that. No, we are getting 11 tracks on this album. Some mid-sized tracks for the bulk of this album, but it's kind of peppered here and there with 10, 13, an 18-minute song closing this entire record out as well. On a majority of these tracks, we are hearing Maiden's usual suspects turning up in these songs. The very bright, burning guitar lead, sometimes that dual guitar action, driving bass lines just synced up very neatly and very precisely with some fantastic drumming. Bruce Dickinson's soaring, epic, passionate and dramatic vocals, which usually deliver a great deal of poetry as well. Many of the tracks on this record don't really feature Iron Maiden doing anything too new or revolutionary, but they are at least doing what they are known for very well. At least, about as well as they're known for doing it, which kind of reminds me of the new Motorhead record in a sense. I mean, Motorhead is so old at this point, and their new record, I mean, they just sound like they're still in their 20s or their 30s. They're just like ripping ass all over the place. But as far as this Maiden record, the track Speed of Light, one of the most hard-hitting tracks in the track listing here. You can essentially rack up another good heavy metal song in the Maiden catalog for the band on this one. Driving bass lines, burning guitar leads, like I said earlier, really engaging and exciting verses, explosive choruses on this track, and kind of a swagger-filled intro with some syncopated drums and guitars, like a lot of very funky fills going into the beginning of this track, and some strong cowbell. I mean, this song rocks with W right in there. Rocks. And Bruce Dickinson's performance on this track is really great too. I mean, I love his really almost evil calls of "Humanity won't save us!" And another thing I'm noticing on this track, and many other tracks on here too, is that the production is better than it was on Final Frontier. The guitars actually have punch and body. They sound like guitars. The bass is very clear and very discernible in the mix. The drums are crystal clear as well, and there's a nice balance, a nice sense of placement between all of the instruments too. I actually feel like I'm listening to a performance, not just some kind of like mockery of the sort of instrumentation that you would get out of an Iron Maiden record. So given that the production is good, I guess I don't really mind that a lot of songs here just kind of sound like Maiden as usual. The Great Unknown, When the River Runs Deep, the song Death or Glory, which has some pretty epic war imagery going into the lyrics on this track. War, very much a recurring theme in the Iron Maiden song catalog. I like the lyrics on the song Tears of a Clown too. A lot of very epic and grim and very sinister poetry throughout this Iron Maiden record. However, on some of these more mid-sized tracks, there are a few lows. On the song Tears of a Clown, as well as on the song The Man of Sorrows, Bruce Dickinson's vocals kind of try to go into this more, I guess, dramatic, ballad-like gear rather than kind of the very aggressive, very theatrical delivery he's known for giving, very campy delivery he's known for giving on a lot of records, which is again, entertaining. But here, his vocals kind of have this really weird moaning quality to them where he sounds like he's more in pain than he is like singing. He really falls short of the commanding delivery that he's become known for. However, going into this record, I wasn't really all that interested in these more mid-sized tracks as I was the longer songs, because they were essentially making this album the big deal that it is, the 90-minute deal that it is. How are these 8, 10, 13, 18-minute tracks? And personally, I actually think on these longer songs is where this album gets the diciest. One of the many issues I have with some of these longer tracks is some of them are overwrought with extra instrumentation, which is nowhere near as vibrant or as amazing to the ears as the bass instrumentation. Yeah, the production on Iron Maiden's usual guitars and drums and vocals is really nice, but stuff like the very thin and cheesy synth horns that kick the entire record off don't really set the epic tone that the band is obviously going for. Or even the closing track here, where we get a lot of like pianos and strings turning up on the track, which sounds super synthetic, or at least mixed in such a way where they just have no real presence in the music and the mix, and it just kind of sounds like a little Disney-ish. How the instrumentation sounds definitely does not sound like I'm listening to a metal record. The strings often add this glossiness to the mix that kind of takes off the edge on these songs, which I think at this point in Iron Maiden's career, the edge definitely needs to be there. These songs don't have as much bite as the band used to have back in the day. What little bite we're getting here, we need that. We need that bite. And believe me, there are elements of these songs that I like. I mean, Empire in the Clouds, I think there are a lot of great moments on this incredibly lengthy track, and I love a lot of the folky medieval melodies that are worked into this track too. But on the song The Red and Black, for me, there's just like nothing salvageable on this track. The very muddy guitar right at the beginning of the song, which sounds like it might be a baritone guitar or something, sounds really just farty and just, again, muddy. And then as we go into the song itself, we're getting Bruce Dickinson just like in lockstep with the lead melody the guitar is playing throughout the track, which is a little speedy. It's kind of a complicated lead melody. And Bruce kind of loses control of his breath control, and he just kind of sounds ridiculous trying to ride this guitar melody rather than just singing his own, I guess, specific vocal line. He sounds like he's trying to run a marathon and sing the song. But to go back to this extra instrumentation that's layered on some of these big tracks, clearly Maiden wanted to write longer songs, but they thought that merely just writing them off of guitar and then leaving it simply as that wouldn't necessarily do these epic songs total justice, because they wanted some kind of extra sound to be in there to elevate the track, to make it sound special and make it sound different from every other song here. But the thing is, that arrange, that extra instrumentation sounds so fake, and the textures, the aesthetic that it brings doesn't really, again, carry that sense of grandness that I think the band wanted, especially on the closing track where I think they needed it the most. And if you were going to come out with a 90-minute record, if you were going to come out with a big record, I just don't understand why Iron Maiden wouldn't have spared the expense to just get some better sounding arranged instrumentation in here. I mean, you're one of the greatest metal bands of all time. I mean, I'm sure there are people, pit orchestras of people who would be dying to work with you. But it seems that instead of kind of taking that plunge into really kind of filling these songs out and making them sound huge and making them sound panoramic and really giving us a change of pace here, instead they've just kind of strung a bunch of songs out with just these various Maidenisms, which is okay because the band is definitely sounding pretty tight on this record, and again, more vital, more alive than they were sounding on Final Frontier. But with those okay results, we are getting an okay record. I'm feeling a decent 6 on this record. Tran? Zishin, have you given this record a listen? If you have, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Iron Maiden, forever.